Hello again, my name is Maria.
And my name is Lexia.
Welcome to part 2 of working with youth in vulnerable situations.
In the last workshop, you developed your understanding of youth as a population and the different adversities they may face.
Now you're going to take all that you've learned and put it into practice in workshop number 2, skills building. We must first consider our own privilege in any and every space we occupy to ensure we are acting in ways that empower those we aim to support. This can be particularly important when working with youth whose identity contains more than one area that offers less privilege than your own. It is important to consider power dynamics. Power dynamics can exist depending on differences in age, in background, in education, and in ethnicity, just to name a few. Consider your tone. Try to match the youth's tone. Match their language. Avoid overly complex language or concepts. Be aware of their understanding. Using inaccessible language may lead youth to disengage or feel negatively about themselves.
That brings us to an activity. Let's take some time to reflect on our own privilege so that we can be more aware next time we're interacting with youth or really anyone. Take a few minutes to identify different areas that might present privilege for your identity. This can include race, ethnicity, your language, your nationality, your class or your gender, your sexuality or age, or really anything else that might present a privilege. Consider how you might manage each of these areas of privilege while engaging with youth in vulnerable situations. It's estimated that this will take you about 5 minutes, so you can press pause now and then press play once you're finished.
Please take 2 minutes to discuss the following questions. What does it mean to approach with curiosity when working with youth? How might we demonstrate curiosity in our approach? Why is it important to approach with curiosity? It is estimated that this will take about 2 minutes. You can press pause now and play once you're finished.
When approaching youth, it's important not to assume anyone's experiences. So ask questions. Don't assume that you know what they need or what they're going through. Ask them what they need or what they're experiencing. Everyone is an expert in their own situation, so empower the youth. They know their situation best, so highlight their intuition and knowledge. Focus on empowering the youth and highlight their strengths. Work collaboratively to problem solve. So when doing so, you can amplify the youth's voice. You can make them feel heard, and you can engage in check-ins on the way.
I'm introducing a metaphor developed by Russ Harris that is often used in acceptance and commitment therapy, also known as ACT. I have filled in the blanks with how they would relate to a therapist, to give you an example, but feel free to fill in with what's relevant to you. Feel free to read along with me. The following is something that you could present to a youth. You know, a lot of people come to therapy believing that the therapist is some sort of enlightened being, that they have resolved all their issues, that they've got it all together. But actually, that's not the way it is. It's more like you're climbing your mountain over there, and I'm climbing my mountain over here. And from where I am on my mountain, I can see things on your mountain that you can't, like there's an avalanche about to happen, or there's an alternative pathway you could take, or maybe you're not using your pickaxe effectively. But I'd hate for you to think that I've reached the top of my mountain and I'm sitting back taking it easy. Fact is, I'm still climbing and making mistakes and still learning from them. And basically, we're all the same. We're all climbing our mountain until the day we die. But here's the thing, you can get better and better at climbing and better at learning to appreciate the journey. And that's what the work here is all about. This is often used to highlight that the therapist, or in your case, the social worker, counselor, project coordinator, or whatever it might be, is not above the client, and in your case, above the youth. This can be a useful way to illustrate this to the youth you are working with, to dismantle any hierarchy that may exist between the two of you.
So when you're guiding the conversation, try to choose appropriate topics and know when to redirect the conversation. So it's important to engage on their level. Use topics that are relevant to them, so this can offer a point of connection. Try to avoid topics that may cause conflict or are seen as controversial. So political topics might want to be avoided completely. We don't know much about their backgrounds, so be wary of getting into discussion that could easily offend, especially if you're in a group of youth. Importantly, you should read the room. So recognize when a conversation is going sour and try to redirect it, especially in conversation with more than one youth again. When doing so, some things to look out for is someone disengaging from the conversation. What this can look like is maybe not talking, physically distancing themselves, avoiding eye contact. Also, is there a change of tone? This can be either actual tone, so verbally, or just in attitude and demeanor. What other signals might you see? And how might you redirect the conversation? You should also ask questions, and when doing so, they should be open questions. So this gives the opportunity for the youth to add their information and to kind of lead the conversation. Ease into conversation. So when beginning, ask lighthearted questions, and only when you feel like an alliance is starting to build, you should ask more sensitive questions. Be aware of asking questions that might imply judgment and assumption. So an example of this can be, how are you struggling with your mental health versus are you struggling with your mental health? The first question implies that you are assuming they are already struggling. So be wary of this.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to another exercise. Now that you know some things to consider as you are navigating through a conversation with youth, please take a few minutes to brainstorm the following questions. So what are some topics that could cause conflict? How might you avoid these or handle them if they make their way into the conversation? What might be some signs that indicate that the conversation is going sour? How might you redirect the conversation? It's estimated that this will take about 5 minutes. You can press pause now and press play once you're done. Okay, break time. Take a few minutes to grab a coffee, go to the bathroom, and you can resume the workshop once you're ready. See you soon. Okay, working with a group of youth. So an important consideration in working with a group is ensuring each individual member of the group feels safe. Therefore, creating and maintaining safety will be a primary focus when working with a group of youth. Creating safety can be fostered by collaboratively making group norms via discussion at the first group meeting. Group norms are expectations that each group must uphold to be part of the group. It's important to establish a protocol if norms are challenged or broken. Revisit norms occasionally to remind youth and also offer space for clarification and adjustment if necessary. Building norms is an ongoing process, and any group member is welcome to ask for discussion of the group norms. Some examples of potential group norms are, our meetings will begin and end on time. We will listen to one another and not interrupt. We will make sure everyone has a chance to speak. We will support our facilitators' efforts to moderate discussions. We will avoid ethnic or gender-based humor. We will respectfully speak to one another. We will not discuss content that is shared in group outside of group.
It's also important to promote the well-being of youth. This can be done through creating a sense of safety and making sure they know that they are safe. You can also offer stability. As I mentioned, the consistency and predictability is really important to youth. Offer and actually show support. This can be done simply by hearing them out when they have something to say. Remember, they may have difficulty trusting, so if you show support, they may feel a bit more comfortable. Communicate with them and offer an environment where they are free to express their emotions in a way that's not reactive or impulsive. This promotes healthy communication. Encourage pro-social peer relationships. Have the youth do something productive and healthy in a group setting together, where they encourage each other to engage in these productive tasks. Focus on their achievements and their strengths. Working with their interests and hobbies is a great way to have them feel engaged in what is going on and do something healthy for themselves. If it feeds into their interests, they may also be more compelled to engage. If you notice that they have a particular strong suit, working with that can help build their confidence and again encourage them to continue developing this strength as well as others.
So the next activity is estimated to take about 10 minutes. So first you're going to begin by dividing the group into two. Considering what you've learned so far regarding managing privilege and approaching with curiosity, Work within your group to brainstorm some open-ended questions that you might ask when approaching a youth in a vulnerable situation. Consider taking about 5 minutes for this portion. So you're going to develop 2 questions to engage the youth, 2 questions to assess the youth's headspace, and 2 questions to inquire about the situation. Next, after this is finished, Group 1 will present their questions to Group 2. Group 2 will offer constructive criticism to Group 1's questions, identifying potential areas for improvements and highlighting strengths. Consider taking 5 minutes to do this. Then we're going to reverse, and step 4 will be repeated with Group 2 presenting to Group 1. So consider taking another 5 minutes to do this. You can press pause now and press play once you're finished. Next, we're going to move into the case studies. So we'll have community collaborators come in from different mental health professions to discuss their experiences in working with youth. Now you will listen to Khanid discuss a case study. As Khanid shares the case study, write down some important bits of information and consider how you might handle this situation. There will be some discussion questions that follow.
Hello everyone, my name is Runid and I'm a psychosocial worker and a life coach. And today I'm going to speak to you about a case I used to face when I was working with youth in Montreal North. So the situation happened in 2009, okay, and there was a riot, and the young man was furious, and he wanted to go fire somebody else on another neighborhood. He had trust on me, so he told me his plan. He came in front of me and he told me, "Oh, I'm planning on doing this, doing that." So I'm going to shoot some guys on another neighborhood, and I was like scared because usually people don't tell you those kind of things. And it was a young man. He was like tall and much taller than me, and I was really scared, but. At the same time, I was talking to him and I was trying to see how am I going to deal with that situation. So what I did, it's like, okay, I tell myself, let me try to put myself at his place. If I was planning on doing such thing, what would somebody have to do or to say to make me change my mind? So I play like a role game, if we can say it, if you can call it like that. I spoke to him like, okay, why you want to do that? He said, okay, because we're like, I don't know, we had some things going on, and he was furious. He was really furious. I tried to tell him like, okay, I understand that you're planning to do this, and I start asking him questions like, okay, are you okay to go to jail? Are you okay are you feeling okay to kill someone? You have brothers, sisters, your mother and your father. How you think they will feel if they learn such thing? And he was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I want to do this and I want to do that. I'm furious, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I understand. I'm not gonna telling you to not doing that thing. I just want you to think about the consequences, because you know that everything that you do have consequences. And he was like, oh, I don't mind. And, you know, he didn't want to listen. So I kept talking to him and I was like, calm. I stayed calm because I didn't want him to see that I was nervous and to see that I was scared, because he put out the gun. So the gun was between him and me. And I was like, while I was speaking to him, in my heart, I was like praying. I was like, oh my God, today I think I'm gonna die, and I don't want to die like that. But I kept my calm, and I like everything was normal and perfect. And I said, okay, fine. So if you want to go ahead, go ahead. Well, just remember that I love you. Your friends do love you. Your family do love you, and it will be like so much boring, like when we're gonna know that you will be in prison or you are to kill someone. And I don't know, I think it's a little bit sad for you if you want to go that way, but I'm not the one who's gonna try to convince you to not doing it. So because I see that you want to do it, but I just wanted you to know, to be really concerned about like the consequences, and are you ready for them? So he was still mad, and I asked him, okay, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a few minutes, and if you wanna go ahead, well, go ahead. But in my head, I was like, oh my God, I hope he changes his mind, I hope he changes his mind. And I said, okay, take a few minutes, and if you wanna go ahead, well, I won't say anything to anybody, and that will be like between you and me. But I wish you good luck, and I think you're the nicest guy, and you're a nice guy, and I don't think like that is a such thing that you want to do, and you don't want to waste the rest of your life in jail. So I asked him to think about it and really think about it, and okay, if you're ready to deal with the consequences, well, go ahead. And I don't know, for some reason, after a few minutes, it was like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, it's up to you, huh? You have to, you really have to know that your action have consequences. And if you're ready to take the consequences, well, it's fine by you. Who am I to not to tell you or not telling you how what to do with your life? And I repeat him, you know, we love you. You're so nice. And you know, I name him a few qualities, and your friend will miss you, and you know how you're funny, how they like you, and when you're not there, it's not the same thing. And you know, finally, decide, okay, I'm not going. And I was like, okay, are you sure you're not going? He said, yeah, okay, I think you're right, and I'm changing my mind. So I said, okay, but he used to, he still have the arms, the gun in his hand. So I'm like, okay, now we're gonna put the gun back. And when we'll go back to the, how do you say that? Like there's a place we call local. We're gonna go back on the place and still continue the activities. And so give me the gun. So he gave me the gun. We put it back. He put it back in his bag. And I said, okay, I never want to see that gun again, and we will never talk about it again. But I'm trusting you that you will always choose what's the better thing, the best thing for you. And he says, and finally he didn't go. And till now, he didn't do it. He didn't went to do it. I don't know what went wrong, what went on his mind, but he listened and he put the gun back on his back. So now we're gonna take a few minutes to think and discuss about the following questions. So press play whenever you're ready.
Now you will listen to Brittany discuss a case study as well. As Brittany shares the case study, write down the important bits of information and consider how you might handle this situation. The discussion questions will follow.
My name is Brittany Chabot. I work for the English Community Organization of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean as their project director, and I am really excited to talk about my experience working with youth in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. Most of my career has been working in some form of customer service, and I'm pretty sure it was there that I picked up on how to just connect with people as a whole. I think it was Archimedes that had said that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And what I love about that idea so much is that when you break it down, it really just means that we're not that different from each other. The angry customer on the end of a line, or the teenager who slams their bedroom door to try and end an argument, at the core, they're both individuals trying to be seen and feel understood and heard. Right now, I'm working with our local English school as part of a work-oriented training program that helps students who might have dropped out get the necessary credits that they need to graduate, while also exploring things like trades training with the expectation that they'll end up with their deck at the end of high school. So what's really cool about that program is that these students are typically ones that are at risk, maybe might have been in the system, come from difficult family backgrounds, and they have the opportunity to not only get their high school diploma, but also a diploma that's going to allow them to be successful in the workforce. It gives students kind of agency over their own education, and the best part about that is that they can earn a little bit of money doing internships, and they're really responsible for themselves and their education. My role as part of this is to help them with applicable life skills. So things like understanding your credit score and why it's important as an adult to be financially responsible, under things like understanding things like building healthy life habits, emotional regulation, critical thinking, and all of the things that we do as functioning adults in society. The students that I work with, as I mentioned, often struggle academically, maybe have been classified as difficult or troubled, and that means that they're often not engaged with the school content, and they're not engaged like an average teenager might be. They maybe have dealt with or are dealing with difficult situations that makes connecting with them more challenging. I knew going into this project that the students weren't just going to accept me, a stranger, in their classroom the same way that they would accept the classroom teacher, and that I would have to work hard at earning their trust in order to get them to really engage with the content and lessons that I was going to be teaching them. And I kind of approached it from two different angles. The first was that I'm not a teacher, and I wasn't their teacher, which meant I didn't really have any authority over them in the classroom. It wasn't up to me to give them bathroom breaks or permission or discipline them. I decided instead that they weren't going to call me Mrs. Chabot, that they could just call me by my first name. And the second was that I would consult with them as much as possible on the content of the program as much as I could. Before I put together my first workshop, actually, I had gone into the classroom and introduced myself and asked them, what do you think you need to learn? What do you want to know? What's important to you? And what do you think is going to be important for you going forward in life? And after each workshop, I asked them, did you think that this was useful? Did you find it was helpful for you? I think it matters to young adults that they feel like they have autonomy and that they're given the same sense of respect that we expect them to give us as adults. I think that these things matter even more when you have a student that is particularly adverse to building that kind of connection. One student that I work with found themselves here in Quebec at almost 16 because their parent had decided to follow their partner here for work. The school had told me that the student was having a particularly hard time adjusting and was often maybe verbally combative with staff and struggled to integrate due to their inability to speak French. And so they had been put into the Pathways program. They had hoped that a more work-oriented pathway would be a better fit than a standard classroom. I had been asked to kind of take them under my wing and have them attend other programs that I facilitated with outside of the school, and I said sure. Knowing what I know about the student, they're new to the area, they speak zero French, and they're already being labeled as difficult by the school administration. I decided to do the same kind of approach with them that I used in the classroom. Before the fall program started, I sat the student down for 5 minutes and I laid out the groundwork. Hey, I'm Brittany. I understand you're new here. How do you feel about that? I knew that they were going to say that they hated it, and I was prepared to validate their feelings. Yeah, I can see how that would be a struggle. It's really difficult to live somewhere where you don't speak the language. I know what it's like to move around because my husband's job means that I have to move around a lot. And then the next thing I did was just give them the facts. So you'll be attending this program with me on X day because the school thinks it's a good way for you to ease into your internships. And I'll pick you up on Tuesday, we'll go over the program, we'll run it, and then I'll drop you back off at school. What do you think? This immediately let the student know that I valued their opinion and I acknowledged that the struggle that they were currently facing, without judgment. They went from being really apprehensive about the change in the schedule to more open and perhaps, while not entirely excited about it, they weren't ambivalent anymore. It was during our drive to that program that my relationship with the student really developed. I asked them basic questions like, what do you like to do? Do you like to read? I know you don't love it here, but have you found anything in particular that you were enjoying? And I just let them talk. And when they told me they couldn't wait to get away from here, I agreed that living somewhere you can't speak the language is hard, and I can understand why they'd want to leave. When they told me they preferred to read poetry over novels, I told them I thought that was cool. I didn't know a lot about poetry, so did they have any recommendations? Small, innocuous conversations that were short and usually over a Starbucks coffee turned into small, not so innocuous conversations about things like how they used weed to cope with their anxiety sometimes. I recognized immediately that consciously or not, the student was testing me. And so they were asking, was I going to be cool about it? Would I tell the school, their parent? When thinking about how to respond to these small trust exercises, I reverted back to that approach that I took in the classroom the first time I went in. I wasn't a teacher. not their parent. I have no authority over them. And if I was being honest, it didn't matter whether or not I approved or disapproved of what they were doing because they were going to do it anyways. Armed with that perspective, I would reply, listen, I know that you know that weed isn't legal at your age, and so we'll skip where I tell you that smoking weed is bad. And I think you're smart enough to know that it's not great for you, but if you think it's helping right now, then all I can tell you to do is be careful. And it was those small nuggets of trust that were offered over the course of a couple weeks that laid the foundation to where this student eventually felt comfortable telling me about what their life was like, where they came from, and how they were frustrated with what they felt the school was making them do. They didn't understand why they had to do X thing instead of Y thing, and how they felt that the administration of the school didn't like them. And this is where I realized that I could really actually do some good and reach them personally. Here in these really vulnerable moments where they sought out my opinion instead of me just offering it up to them. I could help them reframe things, ask them questions, and help them put things into perspective about their own behavior and their part in the conflicts with the school. I walked away from these conversations with this student with a solid picture that the school didn't have. And this student wasn't a troublemaker. They weren't being combative on purpose. They were anxious and they were stressed because they had one goal in mind, and everything the school was asking them to do, in their opinion, pulled them away from that goal. Now, this was information I could use with the school to help this student. I sat down with the principal after asking the student's permission, and I said things like, hey, I think I figured out a way that we can support this student. You know, they're not trying to be difficult on purpose. They're just really, really anxious. They're being combative because they're already at a level 3, just walking through the school door because they're expecting a bad time. So when there's a schedule change or additional work added to their workload, they're not going from 0 to 60. They're going from 55 to 60 because they've been revving the engine all day, just trying to put on a good face. The most surprising thing was how surprised the administration was for me. They had no idea that the student felt this way because no one had taken the time to ask them. No one had taken the time to sit the student down and say, what do you think you need to be successful? Teenagers are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And we're all just 6 degrees of separation from each other. And what might seem like a huge gap between someone who's 16 and someone who's 34, and in many ways there obviously are, is really just a straight line between 2 points. So given with what I just shared with you, take some time and reflect on the questions that'll show on the screen.
That brings us to the end of part 2 of the workshop that provided some practical skills in working with youth in vulnerable positions. We hope that after attending this workshop series, you feel more empowered and confident in supporting youth in your community.
We would love to stay connected with you via Y4Y's ever-growing social media presence. Connect with us on any of the following platforms to hear more about upcoming events, initiatives, and workshops. Thank you.